Welcome back to the Lightwalker's Path. I'm your host, Seryna Myers, and this is episode 23. I am so incredibly excited, actually, because for this episode, I have branched out beyond my immediate network, and I have brought on a wonderful guest who I'm so excited to finally get to meet. So you're going to love him too. This is George Lizos. He is a spiritual teacher. He is an intuitive. And you might know his work because he's really well known for working with elementals. So the dragon realm and mermaids and unicorns and fairies. And today we're going to talk about something completely different. So I tend to put together episodes where I'm following the guidance of where I'm being nudged to kind of stretch into and what to talk about. And I was so excited that he was up for this. So George, tell us a little bit about the divine masculine and how it plays out in your work today.
First of all, it's so great to be here with you, Seryna. I'm so excited to dive into the divine masculine. And actually, I want to connect it a little bit with the elemental spirit because it's so interconnected, the way that nature and the divine masculine and the divine feminine all intermingle. So let's just get the basics down first. When I teach about the divine masculine or the divine feminine, just people get confused with what is the difference between gender, sex, sexuality, and the divine masculine and divine feminine. So let me get the basics down. So gender, first of all, let's start with sex. Sex is biological, either boy or girl. Then gender is social, is what you identify with, and therefore a man or a woman. And then sexuality, it's gay, straight, bi, etc., whatever. Now, the divine feminine and the divine masculine are quite different. They're present in all three arenas. Yes, it is known and accepted that women tend to be more in their feminine energy and men tend to be more in their masculine energy, but we all have both masculine and feminine energy within us. Now, the divine masculine, the divine feminine are basically terms that we made up in order to understand this world of duality that we live in. In spiritual truth, there's only oneness. We're all in this beautiful, interconnected, energetic web of consciousness. But because we chose to come into this world of duality with the aim of exposing ourselves to contrast and allowing that contrast to inspire desires within us, then we like compartmentalizing energy in different ways so that we can relate to it. Now, the divine masculine aspect of source, it's that energy of creation. It's that energy of taking action, of motivation, of moving forward, of expressing yourself, of organizing, of creating structure in things. The divine feminine, on the other hand, it's all about letting go and nurturing and receiving and connecting to your intuition. So they are seemingly opposing energies, but actually one is found within the other. In other words, when you truly embrace the divine masculine, you are naturally in your feminine energy as well. There is a feminine energy within the masculine in the sense that when you are not abusing the masculine, you are expressing it in a very balanced way. And in the same way with the divine feminine, it has some masculine energy within it because when you're fully aligned with the divine feminine and not abusing the feminine energy, you don't just sit back and receive, you take action on what you've received. So really the two terms are very interconnected. But since we're talking more about the divine masculine today, it is that energy of action, of creation that many light workers tend to lack. From my experience, many light workers are just light chillers. We're all about connecting to our intuition, letting the guidance flow through our bodies, just being in these good vibes and thinking that's taking action towards following our life purpose and creating change in the world. But the reason we've been doing all that, and I'm going to go a little bit deeper here, because for thousands of years, the masculine energy, not divine masculine energy has dominated and has been abused. Patriarchy has been in control. It started like in prehistoric times when men acquired the notion of land and possession and therefore created the idea that possession is more important than just receiving and just nurturing and planting, for example. And it expanded into the world we live in today right now, where it's all about go, 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 don't follow your intuition. Here are the logical plans you need to follow in order to find success in your life. Now, thankfully, over the past few decades, light workers all over the world are realizing that we live in a very imbalanced world. Patriarchy can't exist anymore. We need to find balance. We need, therefore, to uplift the divine feminine. So we've been doing a lot of work collectively. So many generations have been doing a lot of work, and the divine masculine has started to get more acceptance, and feminine energy, so divine feminine and feminine energy in general. Now, of course, there is a lot more work to be done to bring the divine feminine up to where it should be, next to the divine masculine. But in our attempt to glorify the divine feminine, we've damned the divine masculine. We've told ourselves that, okay, now we need to focus on the feminine, like we're acting out of like fear. Let's focus on the feminine. So we're going 100% feminine, just connecting with the goddesses, just doing the meditation and staying and then basking in this beautiful energy and thinking that by meditating on world peace, we're bringing upon world peace. Yes, it contributes to a great degree, but it's not enough because we don't have a notion of balance. We're trying to resolve the problem by creating the opposing problem. Whereas if we continue just focusing on the divine feminine, we're going to create eventually yet another imbalance where it's a matriarchal society rather than a patriarchal society. So just to end this long reply to your first question, the divine masculine is not the bad guy. The way we've abused it is. And I believe that it's our job as light workers to embrace both parts of the term, light, divine feminine, and work, rather than just being light chillers.
Yes, I love that. And you actually basically touched on everything that I wanted to talk about. So that's really as just our foundation to be starting from. You talked about the patriarchy. And what I notice is a lot of people who step into light work are really aligned with the divine feminine, and they have often been, I don't want to use abused, but there has been like wrongdoings by the patriarchy and by masculine energy. So whether that is men or not, but there's something about that hardness. And that sometimes it's even just the internalized pressure as well, right? Because it's not just women that this is happening to. So when I invited you, the first thing I had happen was a whole bunch of kind of shitty things around men came up almost instantly, including up to yesterday, right before our call. And I find that sometimes that's what I need to be able to spur conversation, because I go, okay, obviously there's something that I have here that needs to heal. And so when we have these patriarchal wounds, and then we're talking about doing something to lift the masculine, I know there are some people who are probably hearing this and feeling a lot of resistance. You made the distinction of the divine masculine and the patriarchy, but how do we make it feel safe for people to even allow that uprising to happen? Because you're right, we don't want to swing the pendulum so far in the other direction that we have a completely opposite problem. How do we get people who have been harmed by the patriarchy to feel safe?
So we're basically afraid of patriarchy, and the way to overcome anything you're afraid of is to face it, to face that fear. And the way I do that with my clients, I do a lot of past life therapy. So I take them into a past life where they've been abused by masculine energy, or where they have abused masculine energy themselves, and they face the original trauma, and then they're able to face their trauma in this lifetime, because the past and the future and the present, they're all intermingled. So really, when you're doing past life work, you're doing present life work and future life work. Because when you heal something in the past life, you heal something in the current life. But you just have to heal something. You need to bring it all up. It brings it all up anyway. When you touch on a trigger, it triggers everything. And when you face and have a conversation with the trigger and the fear, that's when you start healing it and realizing that it's not the masculine energy that created all that. It's people abusing that masculine energy. And I want to tell you my story. Please. Of how I dealt with this. Where do I start? Let me start from my childhood, where I grew up in this beautiful Mediterranean island, small community called Cyprus. The thing with small communities is that they don't accept difference. So when I was always like the weird kid talking to the flowers and being out by myself. So I was made fun of a lot at school, and I was bullied a lot. So I kept to myself. I tried to change myself and be who other people wanted me to be in order to find acceptance. I tried to be the perfect student at school, the perfect son for my parents, the perfect citizen in society. So when I found out I was gay at the age of 13 years old, I'm like, no way I'm coming out as gay, because at the time, gay people were considered to be pedophiles and criminals in Cyprus. It was actually illegal until 1994, I think. I was 4 years old at the time. So there was a big stigma on homosexuality. I'm like, no. I'm just going to change myself from gay to straight one step at a time, like I did with everything else. And of course, it did not work out the way I expected it to. Clearly, I couldn't change myself because I was born this way. So after 2 years of trying to change and couldn't, I decided that the easy way out was, the only way out basically, was to take my own life. So I reached this very low psychological point when I'm like, there's no point for me leaving. So you see the masculine energy right now, abusing my feminine energy, being born with a lot of feminine energy, and the masculine energy controlling nature, society, patriarchy, trying to control it by controlling me, and therefore me abusing my masculine energy by wanting to take my own life. Thankfully, this didn't happen. I had an epiphany and I decided, fuck the church, fuck society, I'm gonna be who I want to be, and I learned to love and accept myself. Long story. Now, one part of the story, let's jump a few years later, two years ago, where I was living in London, working in London, and I was working a full-time job while working my business part-time. So I would go to work 9 to 5, come home, short break, 7 to 12 in the midnight, I would work on my business for 3 years. Non-stop, Seryna, just bang on every single day.
That's commitment to the work, though.
That's committed to the work, but it's abusing of myself and of my masculine energy because it's too much work. Yeah. So in those 3 years, my health suffered. I just was full of eczema. I was almost depressed. Like in retrospect, thinking back on myself right now, I know I was mildly depressed because I didn't have time to, had no personal life, no social life. I didn't have time to go to the gym or eat healthily or do anything. I was just work. So even though a masculine energy, patriarchy failed to kill me when I was a teenager, it was doing it slowly in my adulthood.
And we totally glorify that. We glorify that hustle energy.
Yes. Oh my God.
And it devours us.
So for so many years, I thought I had healed that. I've been doing this work for 10 years now. I had written my book, The Spiritual Teacher, blah, blah, blah. And there I was, allowing masculine energy to keep abusing me. It is so subtly embedded into the cornerstone of society that we don't realize how much patriarchy is controlling us. And when I realized it because I woke up one morning and I couldn't go to work. My body wouldn't move, like it refused to move. I was like fatigued. So I did what I always did when I was in a state of turmoil. I went to Glastonbury. I don't know if you know what Glastonbury is. A magical town in the UK. So I go to Glastonbury, and I was guided to go do a past life regression. So I do a past life regression. And by the way, like a side note, for a year until that moment, I've been doing past life regressions. And in those past life regressions, I kept seeing myself being a prostitute over and over again. I'm like, what's up with that? So I go to that past life regression with the aim of going to the first lifetime when I was a prostitute so I could resolve it. And I found out that in that first lifetime, I was a prostitute who got impregnated with one of my clients. And when he found out, he stabbed me in the womb and killed the baby. So from then on, I vowed to keep suppressing my feminine energy and to only live in my masculine energy. So lifetime, like after lifetime, I would abuse my masculine energy. In this lifetime, I abused it by not accepting my homosexuality and by overworking myself. And it was only after, through past life therapy, I was able to forgive and let go of what happened in the past lifetime. Therefore, what people can do is face their past life and then forgive their abuser, but also forgive themselves, because we may have been abusers of masculine energy in past lives as well, or in this lifetime. So with forgiveness, I was able to let that go. I broke the chain. Coming out of the past life regression, I got 3 quick impulses, epiphanies. Quit your job, go self-employed, move to Cyprus. And that's what I did in exactly that order. I planned for a year, I quit my job, I moved to Cyprus, I went self-employed, and here I am 2 years later. The eczema is gone, my health is great, I feel happy, and I have this balance of work and this rhythm better of work and relaxation. I go to the beach, I relax, but at the same time I work. So this is how we break the chain of patriarchal control over us. We identify what the problem is. We're not afraid to face the abuse and the trauma. We forgive, we let go, and we start new.
I love that facing element, because I feel like a lot of times the shadowy parts of light work are the parts that we put off, delay, avoid, because they're not comfortable. It's a lot easier to say, oh, I'm just going to say this mantra 1,000 times than it is to say, I'm actually going to look at these unexplored parts of myself so that I can actually bring real healing there, not just Band-Aid what's underneath.
Because we're so obsessed with positivity in the spiritual community.
Totally.
Like, oh, just be positive, just be positive. Oh, don't cry. Oh, raise your vibes. I'm like, well, you can't really raise your vibes when you have really low vibes in your past lives or in your present lifetime that are there active in your vibration, but you're suppressing just because you're supposed to be this superficially positive person all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even just the impact of suppressing that too.
Let me add something more, because
Please.
I think this is where it's at. We're afraid of negative emotion because we feel that when we are in a negative state of being, and when we affirm or when we feel negatively, we're going to attract more negativity. That's where the fear is based on. But what we don't realize is that all a negative emotion wants is to be heard and acknowledged, and then it loses its power completely. Its only power over us is us being afraid of letting it speak. And as soon as it speaks and expresses itself, it's gone. Mm-hmm. It's completely gone.
I always say shame breeds in silence.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the thing, when I do, whenever I have something that's been really, really bugging me, I will find someone safe that I can say it out loud, because just in saying it out loud, just in voicing it, just strips it of its power immediately.
Completely.
It doesn't get rid of the problem, but it gets rid of the power the problem has over you for being able to do something different.
It obliterates the negativity of it, and it's 50% of the solution, just facing it.
Well, you know what's so interesting too is, like, when I look at your website, you have so many different products that you create. So you are a massive creator. And for that past life experience to have been so deeply tied to the womb, like, imagine how much little you would be creating in this life, or how much less you'd be creating in this life if you hadn't resolved that. And then the ripple effect that has of all the people that you've helped with the things that you've created. It's bananas. Like, the world would be completely different without that impact.
Exactly. That's why it's so important for all of us to do not be afraid to do the shadow work. And for people who may be interested, since you mentioned on my website, I have a class that I did with a new age hipster, Vix Maxwell, called Divine Masculine Rising, which we do exactly that. We guided people to go to those past lives and heal the abuse of masculine energy, and then also embrace it. So people can go to georgelizos.com and go to the Work With Me section. You'll be able to find the Divine Masculine Rising workshop.
Yes. And I actually think that that's a really, really great place to start. When you mentioned the shadow work, do you think shadow work is for everybody?
Shadow work is just a term. At the basis of it, it's resolving unresolved situations from your past, which we all go to. People maybe term it however they want to term it, but I think we all, now you bring up a different point right now with like similar, like we use the term shadow work in spirituality, like psychologists, there is this distinction between, and this eternal war between psychologists and therapists. Should we take a psychoanalytical approach where it's going in the past to resolve the past in order to create change in the future? Or should we take a present life approach called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy approach, where no, we don't care about the past, we don't just care about the present and the future? My opinion regarding healing, is that it's different for different people. Some people would heal more if they would just focus on the present, go with the negative thoughts that are in their head, and do the healing work in the present moment. Other people want to go back and may need to go back in order to resolve certain stuff, in order to be able to move forward in the present and in the future. And other people, it's a combination of the two. So it's just a matter of just finding the tools that resonate with you and doing the work. But do the work. Don't just say you're going to do the work.
That seems to be like a really big theme in a lot of the interviews that I've been doing, because there is so much lip service around light work. It's really nice to talk about and to think about, but the doing, and for me, it's actually what I've been realizing with myself is that I exist so much up here. I do, but I do it from up here, that the being and the embodiment of the work, the physicality of it, that's the part I've been really avoiding. And I think if we tie it back to the patriarchy, like this vessel is housing my hurt, my trauma, my whatever, all the stuff I had been avoiding. And by existing in the ethers, yes, I was getting things done, but I wasn't grounding it back into here. And that's been my really big lesson this year, is just embodying the work as well, not just being it.
And that makes sense for you. And there's, for example, in my case, it was the exact opposite. So it's really important to see where we are in this lifetime based on where we've been in past lifetimes. Like my story has been abusing the masculine and suppressing the feminine. Your story is probably quite different. It's honoring the feminine and being afraid of the masculine, for example. So just something that everybody can do is just ask themselves, what's my story? What am I doing? Turn into the present moment and see what's showing up. How am I following my life purpose? Am I really following my life purpose, or am I projecting my happiness into the future and projecting following my happiness into the future? Like 3 years working a full-time job and telling myself, oh, when I feel ready, I'm going to go self-employed. When I have this big of an audience, I'll be able to do this. And I'm like, I'm projecting my happiness into the future. I'm saying I'm a light worker, but I'm not really working the light. I'm working for someone else's light.
I'm a light talker.
I'm a light talker. I'm a light chiller. So it really needs to be like a wake-up call for light workers to walk and work their light. Since you're doing the Lightwalker podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there, how can we have these honest conversations with ourselves about whether we're in the feminine or the masculine, and like in terms of imbalance? It's like hit my mic there. Yeah. And how we don't abuse that. Like, how do we recognize that abuse in ourselves when it is so inherent, when it is part of our programming? How do we recognize when we're doing that? Like, for you to have that epiphany at like 15, that's beyond, really. There are so many adults who don't have that type of awareness. So how do we tune in and recognize sort of what energy we're dominating with, and are we doing that in a healthy way?
There are many ways to approach it. The way I would approach it is start having a relationship with yourself, because we're so dissociated from ourselves because patriarchy just shows up in the world. It's in everything we do. It's in the news. It's in the way we function. It's in the way that society functions. I mean, think about the schedule of an average adult. We wake up, we get dressed, we go to work, we come from work, we have chores to do, we have kids to take care. It's all active, active, active. We don't have any feminine time to sit and connect and just go within and see what's showing up. So firstly, just noticing how we're functioning in the world, and even making a list and dividing our time, and basically dividing our day into the action steps and tasks we do on a daily basis, and then assigning a term to it. Like, is this a masculine activity? Is this a feminine activity? And then at the end of the day or the week, just seeing, are we mostly in our masculine or are we mostly in our feminine? But at the same time, that's step number one. But step number two is what I said in the beginning, just spending more time with ourselves so we get to know how we feel, so we get to know ourselves. Because do we really know ourselves? Unless you're doing the inner work and we're doing the spiritual work and going within, then we don't really have a relationship with ourselves. And we don't have a relationship with ourselves, then how can we know if we're in our masculine or in our feminine? Because we're just so dissociated all the time and just keeping ourselves busy without really doing something. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
There are many ways to approach it. That's why I'm sharing a lot here. Like I did it with past life regression. For me, it worked. For some people who don't like the woo aspect of it, probably not.
Right.
But
that's where
just,
therapy comes in, or
yeah,
other practices.
it's just turning within. Just finding ways to turn within, whether it is meditating, whether it is just noticing how you're spending your time, whether it is doing a past life regression, whether it is just spending time with yourself. That helps you bring up all the shit that you have to release.
No, absolutely.
Trust me, it's not going to be hard because we have a lot of it.
I think it's being able to bring it up and then not dismiss it. Like, you don't have to judge it as good or bad or whatever, but it's being able to experience it and be like, oh yeah, I'm in it right now. Like, I'm feeling this. I used to refer to it as the shits. And I'd be like, I'm in the shits right now, and it's not very good, but I know that when I get to the other side, it's going to feel really great. And having that patience and grace with yourself to make the journey is a lot more complete of the work than it is to just be like, okay, actually, no, like, I know it's really bad, but actually things are really good, and this is why. And you just like bury it down and shove it down and hide
Not
it,
own it.
deny it. We need to have like those honest conversations. I feel like that's probably like the biggest theme that we're talking about today, is just being able to get real about where you're at and what you're feeling.
Owning it, basically.
Owning it. Absolutely. Now, one of the things that's super cool, and you said like over the last couple of decades, this has been happening, and I'm seeing it a lot more in this era, is in this rise of the divine feminine. And we're having a rise of conscious men at the same time who are either in their divine masculine energy, or they're embracing their own divine feminine vibes, which is beautiful. And these are the people that are raising children today, which is so exciting because now we've got conscious kids that are growing up in the world.
Yes.
How do we nurture young boys to not just become another agent of the patriarchy?
Help them connect to nature. I told you I was going to bring in the elementals.
Yeah, let's
now,
do
the
it.
reason I teach a lot about the elementals and connecting with nature is because nature is already in a state of balance. I mean, I have a bachelor's degree in geography, so I spent like 3 years studying all about volcanoes and atmosphere and ocean currents and how the earth works, which was amazing because then I got to study the earth from a spiritual level and teach about the elementals. Now, what my geography teacher used to tell me was that, George, it's not about saving planet Earth. It's about saving the human race, because the planet Earth has been around forever.
Gonna be fine.
So many civilizations now haven't. Why? Because they try to abuse Mother Earth. They try to mess up with her balance, because Mother Earth, Gaia, the elementals, the spirits and consciousness of nature are already and purely in this perfect state of balance between masculine and feminine energy. They cannot get out of balance. So this balance dominates into this world. If we try to abuse it and mess it up like we are doing, like we've been doing for thousands of years, it's gonna retaliate, like it's retaliating with the hurricanes and the fires and everything. It's gonna wipe us out eventually if we don't take action. So the reason the elementals are showing up more and more, and the elementals are the spirits, the consciousness, and the animism within nature. Therefore, the nature spirits, mermaids, dragons, fairies, gnomes. The reason they're showing up more and more in spirituality and in popular culture is because the elementals are actively extending an olive branch and wanting to help us save ourselves. So we can work in a beautiful co-creative partnership together with the aim of creating this heaven on earth that we initially wanted when we started this human experiment on planet Earth. So how do we raise conscious kids? We help them connect with nature more, because first of all, we are part of nature, but do we really live in nature, or do we live in mega cities disconnected from it, like locked in little boxes and houses like these in front of the computer all day long? Do we really have a connection with nature? Even if we're surrounded by it, do we really pay attention to it? Do we take the time to go outside and smell the roses and look up at the sky? Do we look at the sky every single day like the ancient Greeks used to do and say, thank you, it's great to have another day with you, sun, Apollo? They personify different aspects of nature. Ancient pagan religions all around the world, indigenous religions, the Aboriginals, the ancient Greeks, the Indians, every ancient religion around the world has personified nature and created a relationship with every single aspect of nature and just honored them and had a daily interaction with them. That's why they lived in balance until we just mess things up. So imagine a world where kids grow up every single day having a connection with nature, knowing that, well, if I have this flower, it's gonna feel pain. So because they do feel pain, so I'm just gonna take some time to just thank the flower and just prepare it before I cut it. Or just pick up the litter from the ground on the beach, or just don't throw the litter on the ground in the first place. Just having this connection with nature works in both an emotional, a spiritual, and a logical level to help us find balance. Because if we are in balance, we don't abuse nature. And if we are in connection with nature, we are balanced.
Wow.
So it goes both ways.
And then this is not even something that's reserved just for little boys. Like little girls are in that same place too.
Everybody.
We can all use a little bit more balance and a little less time on our screens. I think
100%. 100%.
You know, what's super funny is before our call, I pulled a card and I pulled Father Sky. And I think that's really neat about the personification of these elements of nature and of the earth, is that it makes it personal. We engage with it differently. It becomes a friend that you want to connect with. And I think that storytelling element is really removed from modern society. And that's the kind of stuff that makes it easy to get bored or distracted or disconnected because it's not personal. It's not an old friend that you're visiting.
That's the Angels and Ancestors card deck, right?
It is, yeah.
It's from Kyle Gray. Now, I love that deck because I know Kyle, and I know Kyle is very connected to the earth-based spiritualities. And that particular deck, the Angels and Ancestors one, draws from different indigenous cultures all around the world to make the point that they've all known the same thing. And we need to find it as well in our lives. So it fits in perfectly with what we're talking on right now. So I don't know if you know, but I'm a priest to Greek paganism.
Oh, I didn't know that. No.
So I'm part of the religion that still honors the Greek gods. So we work with Zeus and Apollo and Aphrodite. I have Hephaestus here with me right now.
Beautiful.
So let's talk a little bit about this, because all the ancient cultures, like from all cultures around the world, like the American Indians as well, they all personified, as you just said, aspects of nature, and they've given them personality. They were giving them different aspects and an essence and a beingness. And they wrote music about them, and they wrote poems about them and hymns. And every single day, like now, Seryna, we do our new moon and full moon rituals. Did you know that the ancient Greeks honored the moon in almost every single day? Like in all the phases, all the different phases. It wasn't just something you did just to take a beautiful picture and post it on Facebook or Instagram. It was a relationship they've had with the world, and there is so much we can learn from them. It's not a matter of going back and becoming pagans, although you can if you want to. It's just a matter of allowing ourselves to be inspired by them and start seeing the consciousness and the spirit and the animism that it is within all natural thing. Like if you go outside, I teach a lot about mermaids, and that's how you discovered me. And so people ask me, okay, are mermaids real? I'm like, yes, they are, but it's not the beautiful women with a fishtail that you have in mind. This is just the way we interpreted the energy of what mermaids are. What mermaids are is, let's go to the beach. You go to the beach, you sit on the beach, you close your eyes, you meditate, and you allow yourself to become one and be exposed to the sensations and the affect that the sea creates within you. So it makes you feel calm, and it transports you. It just, it brings up thoughts in your mind, it creates feelings within you, and it opens up your heart, and you start feeling vulnerable and releasing fears and limiting thoughts and beliefs that you've had and suppressed emotions that you've had for so long. That's mermaids. That interrelation, that connection you had with the sea right then, that's the mermaid communicating with you, because you couldn't have had those thoughts, you couldn't have had those feelings if it weren't for the sea.
And yet people will attribute that to the ocean or to the beach more than they will to the mermaid energy in the first
To the
place.
spirit, because it is the spirit. So imagine if rather than just say, oh, the sea calms me down, let's say, well, the sea spirit calms me down. I like having a relationship with the sea spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Having
if you don't want to
conversation.
call it mermaid, at least.
It's a shift of perception.
Absolutely.
Just starting to have this relationship with nature just brings you into balance, and you find this balance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine intrinsically. You don't need to create it or fabricate it. It's just there when you expose yourself in a conscious way to nature.
Well, and I think coming back to what you said at the start about how, there isn't a one size fits all approach. Everybody's way is a little bit different. For some people, it's going to be being in the woods and being with animals and trees and whatever. And some people, it's going to be by the water. Like everyone's nature is going to be a little bit different based on who they are and what energy they most need at that time. Because I know mine kind of flexes and grows with my path as well. So trying not to expect it to be anything else, but maybe like dabble in a few different facets of nature and see what actually feels really good and what really calls to you would be a nice place to start.
Simple question to people listening in is, what element out of the 5 elements, earth, air, water, fire, and spirit, are you most attracted with? Now, the first one that came into your mind, that's the one you need more right now. You don't need to know why, but that's the one you need more. Now, the elements also, yes, they're balanced in their masculine and feminine energy, but they also have an expression of those energy, a dominant expression of those energy, in the sense that the element of fire, the dragons, the phoenix, it's the embodiment of the divine masculine, but at the same time, the balanced aspect of the divine masculine. And the element of water is primarily in the divine feminine. So if you're attracted to water, that means you're into your masculine energy a lot and you need more feminine energy, and therefore working with the water elementals, you will be able to create more feminine energy into your life. If you're too feminine in your energy, then you may be attracted to deserts or the sunshine, therefore the fire element. So it may be an opportunity for you to just go out there and explore that element, connect with those elementals such as the dragons, the earth core dragons, the volcano dragons, the sun dragons. There are so many realms that I teach in my elemental healing practitioner course. And allow that element to give you the medicine that you need. I like to think of the work that I do with the elementals as they just give us spiritual vitamins. It's just a spiritual vitamin that and sometimes we get to meet composite elementals, because it's not so black and white and compartmentalized. They're all intermingled. Because, for example, a water elemental near the sea, there's an interaction between the sea and the air and the beach. So you may get a water elemental, you may get an air elemental, you may get an earth elemental, or a composite elemental of all 3 elements.
Again, it's not having any assumptions about what it's going to look like. It's knowing.
But we went
exactly
deep into elemental healing right now, but yes.
What I love about this too is that you have your course is coming up right now around elemental healing. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, I'm so excited. This is the second time we're launching it. So I'm doing this course with the author of Unicorn Rising. She's a Hay House author. Her name is Calista. And it's called the Elemental Healing Practitioner course. So it is a certification course. It's a 12-week course where we train people to become certified elemental healing practitioners. We teach them how to establish a connection and a relationship, a deep relationship with the different elements. We introduce a bunch of different elementals from each element and guide them into 12 weeks of deepening their connection with them, and then channeling that energy within the different elements and the life areas that each element and elemental specializes in, channel it to help other people heal and transform different aspects of their lives. For example, the water element works with the relationships and emotions. The fire element is all about motivation and action taking and physical health and so on. So it's both a hands-on healing modality, just like Reiki, so people can use it in that way. So we teach different hand positions. But at the same time, there's a lot of psychic work involved where they have to connect with the elemental, channel the elemental, and then use different processes to help the client create some elemental magic in their own life. So I'm launching this course again starting in November, and I'm doing a free webinar for everybody who wants to attend and learn all about how to deepen their connection with the elementals. The webinar is coming up on the 3rd of November. And if people can go to georgelizos.com/elementals, you can sign up for it. It's a free 1-hour webinar. We're going to teach you for free about the elementals. And then in the end, we're going to introduce and open the doors to the second round of the Elemental Healing Practitioner course. And I'd love for everybody who feels called to come and join us.
And talk about like bringing in that balance and forging that relationship with nature in this beautiful way with these energies that have been personified, so that it is fun, it is meeting a new friend, and it is being able to bring real work to light work.
It's all about partnering with nature rather than using the elementals as like our slaves.
That's a very big distinction.
It's partnering and co-creating together. That's what this work is all about.
I love that. And that is happening so soon. So again, that webinar is on November the 3rd. Okay, well, just as a heads up, this is an abridged version of this conversation. If you want to feel and hear the full meal deal, you'll want to hop over to my YouTube channel. So you'll look up my name, Seryna Myers, not specifically this podcast, and you'll be able to get the entire conversation with George in depth and just really tap into the different ways that you can be really striving for balance. So yes, there is the divine masculine that is rising, but what we're talking about is not a domination of one or the other. It's really bringing in more balance, more harmony. George, thank you so absolutely much for this conversation. It has been an absolute treat.
Thank you so much for having me. I so love chatting with you.
I love chatting with you too. Have a really great rest of your day. And for the rest of you, I will be catching you next week right here, same bat time, same bat channel.